At a time when manufacturing is central to India's growth ambition, the Union Budget 2026 sets the tone for the industry. Joining me to help decode this is Mr. Harsh Singhania, past President FICCI and CMD of JK Paper Limited. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
My first question to you would be, what do you make of this year's budget's focus on manufacturing? Did it build on the momentum? How do you see this from the industry perspective?
I think it not just builds, but it enhances the momentum. Because the finance minister talked about scaling, and particularly in 7 critical strategic sectors. She also talked about competitiveness, which, if you notice from the economic survey, was a major point that was brought out. So when you look at some of the major sectors, we've got to scale up in manufacturing in the country. And she talked about these 7 sectors which were there in terms of, things like biopharma, things in the area of electronics, things in the areas of rare earths. So there were many areas which focus was there. Also in talking about rejuvenating the existing industrial clusters, the legacy clusters, the infra push continues. So all of this feeds into manufacturing. And manufacturing is an important part of developing economy, creating jobs. And as you know, our ambition has been to get to about 25% of GDP with manufacturing. And we are far behind. So I think there was welcome emphasis on this.
Right. One of the significant sectors that we saw where announcements were made is the MSME sector. Large industries also have, a large MSME supplier base. How do you see all the announcements that were made, the 10,000 crore equity support, the announcements around trades? Trades has been a mixed bag till now. How do you see that?
No, I think the MSME is very crucial because that creates actually even more jobs than large-scale manufacturing does. Because as you rightly said, this is a feeder system into large-scale manufacturing. So for large-scale manufacturing to grow, you need to have a very robust MSME sector, a supplier chain. And as we are seeing global supply chains being disrupted, if we can strengthen our domestic supply chains, it's very important. The other area where I think on manufacturing, and you can call it MSME, but also large scale, has been on areas which have been affected by tariffs. So for example, labor intensive sectors, textiles, leather, garment, marine exports. So a lot of these sectors have been affected. And in fact, if you notice, the finance minister has tried to provide some relief from SEZ to taxation reliefs to bring it to a domestic tariff area. Because these sectors have been affected by the tariffs.
Right. You mentioned the word tariff. It'd be interesting to know from you, how much do you think of this year's budget has to do with what's happening geopolitically or the external sector?
See, budgets or any plan cannot be made in isolation of what is happening globally. So one is the strengthening of domestic manufacturing by itself, the infra push. All of these are strengthening the country. The finance minister also talked about a strong and robust financial sector. So these are all, this is one part of it. The other part, if you notice, is about trying to attract foreign investment through data centers, the tax holiday on data centers by foreign companies. Also tolling margin for capital goods by foreign companies to be able to do this. Now, one of the areas which I would believe which has been affected is the weakening of the rupee, is right. Because money has been going out. We are not getting as much FDI as we would want. And in this kind of a global geopolitical situation, if we can attract money into the country, it helps our currency as well. So clearly this has been kept in mind. The third part is the softer side, which is the development of the skills required. You can have the hardware, but what about the software? And therefore, a lot of emphasis on skilling, on scaling up the human capital available in a variety of areas is very important. And one other point on a macro level that I'd like to point out, which is very, again, leads into that, is the fact that the government has continued on the path of fiscal discipline. The debt GDP ratio is coming down continuously. And India stands out as one of the few economies, and certainly amongst the very large and fast-growing economies, which is offering stability and certainty
Huh.
in a world which is full of turmoil. If you see the debt GDP ratios of many other countries, they're completely out of whack.
Right. So yeah, I think fiscal deficit at 4.3 is what we are aiming at for next year. Last question to you would be, what are the hits and the misses? Every budget, the industry has expectations. Do you think there were some areas where the FM could have done a little better?
Look, it's unfair for me to say what the misses are because we have to look at the fine print, and honestly, there is a lot that will be there in the details which is not there. I think overall, directionally, it is very positive. It is good. There was no mention, if you ask really what, there was no mention of GST, but then GST is a separate matter which is done by the GST Council. So it really doesn't have to feature into the budget. And I think overall, it keeps to a continuity, it keeps to predictability, and it aims to continuously take away irritants and ease. So, like you would have seen decriminalization of certain things for smaller things, converting them into fees instead of having penalties. So, I think it continues in a very positive direction.
Great. Thank you so much for talking to us.